It's so simple, it can be taken apart and reassembled in 20 seconds, flat, blindfolded. It's been called the real weapon of mass destruction.
The AK-47 kills 250,000 people a year.
It's the gun of choice for generations of revolutionary icons: Fidel Castro, Osama bin Laden, Hugo Chavez, and dictators like Saddam Hussein. It's the symbol of resistance the world over. Larry Kahaner has written a new book on the AK-47.
All guerrilla fighters carry the AK. It's on the flag of Hezbollah, is on the flag, and also on the coins of Mozambique.
So it's a branding of sorts, huh?
It is absolute branding.
It's made child soldiers possible.
I was 13 when I became a child soldier. The first rifle that I had was an AK-47.
It's often referred to as the African credit card.
Because you don't leave home without it.
And this year, it turned 60. This is the original AK-47, 60 years later, and it still works. Because it's designed that way. At the primary factory in Izhevsk, Russia, deep in the Ural Mountains, it's tested under the harshest conditions. Blasted with sand, it fires. Submerged in cold water, it fires. Frozen in tundra-like conditions, it fires. That's a big reason for its popularity. Fighters can hide it in a sandbank or pull it from a swamp, and it just keeps on firing. Because it's so indestructible, no one really knows how many AKs exist in the world today. Estimates range from 75 to 100 million. Many are just stashed away.
It's actually a very good personal investment. You can bury your AK when things get a little peaceful, and then several years later, literally, you can dig that rifle up and it'll fire.
Some experts say it can be used as a predictor of coming instability.
In countries where people feel unsettled, where trouble is brewing, the price of an AK will skyrocket.
The price of the AK on the open market ends up being a barometer for danger and civil strife in a country.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's ridiculously cheap.
Some sub-Saharan countries, you can buy an AK for $10 or $15. An AK could be traded for a bag of corn. In South America, it's traded for drugs.
If the Kalashnikov automatic rifle deserves its reputation as indestructible, it's matched by its inventor, who seems equally tough.
We come to Russia to talk to the man himself, Mikhail Kalashnikov. He's a revered national hero here.
These days, it seems that everywhere the 87-year-old goes, he's accompanied by a brass band. This year, the AK's birthday celebrations are extensive and effusive. Kalashnikov was still a very young man, a tank gunner wounded and sidelined from action in World War II, when he set out to invent a weapon that would help defeat the Germans.
I designed the assault rifle for defending the motherland.
That didn't work out. By 1947, the war was over. But Kalashnikov's automatic rifle has defended or overthrown lots of other motherlands since then. How has the AK-47 changed warfare?
If it gave an opportunity to some countries to gain freedom, it is a useful thing.
Kalashnikov insists he sees his invention as a peacemaker.
This is why my book is called Kalashnikov is Peace.
That's the title in Russian. When his book was published in English last fall, the title was changed to reflect another view. I've been reading your book, The Gun That Changed the World. The perspective, I guess, depends on whether you won or lost. Biltim Chingono, the military attaché from Zimbabwe, was among many African representatives attending a recent conference honoring the gun. He was on the winning side.
Nothing brought independence, nothing brought democracy, nothing brought peace. And we went on to take the armed struggle, to embark on the armed struggle using the AK, and eventually, because of that, peace was brought to Zimbabwe.
Kalashnikov says the way his weapon is used and the causes it's used for are a matter of politics. He isn't personally responsible for the 250,000 killed with it every year, but he is very proud of the fact that fighters everywhere find it superior to the American-designed M16, and he's eager to tell me exactly why.
The M16 rifle is reasonably good. It looks beautiful, but there are times when it malfunctions. Every military wants a reliable weapon in its hands. This is why my rifle has become so widespread.
The discrepancy between the two weapons first became widely known during the Vietnam War. M16s jammed and clogged in the damp and dirty jungle. American soldiers sometimes lifted AKs from dead Vietnamese. In 1990, Kalashnikov was invited to the United States to meet Eugene Stoner, the designer of the M16. They engaged in a friendly shoot-off. Ironically, Stoner, whose name is virtually unknown outside the gun world, got $1 for every M16 manufactured. He became a multimillionaire. Kalashnikov became famous. But he earned only the honor and glory of serving the Soviet Union. He relishes that honor and glory. He brags that victorious Mozambican soldiers returning from battle named their children after him.
They call their children Kalash. This name sounds like a first name there. Is it bad for a designer when his rifle gets a human life?
Sometimes a perceived superiority of the AK can be a bit embarrassing for the United States. The Iraqi army had traditionally used AKs, felt comfortable with them. So during the current conflict, when the U.S. started supplying new weapons, the Iraqis insisted on more AKs.
So the U.S. Department of Defense had to go out. In fact, they bought them from Jordan, and they were in turn made in Germany.
American soldiers are issued the updated version of the M16, called the M4. But many of them like having an AK-47 as well. The Russian company that makes and sells the AK put out this video of American soldiers declaring their enthusiasm for the weapon.
We tank soldiers really appreciate the Kalashnikov.
Of course, this isn't the first time the United States has given Kalashnikov's gun to a foreign force. Back in the 80s, when the American government was secretly arming the Afghan and Arab fighters who were struggling to push the Soviet army out of Afghanistan, it provided AKs. Apparently, agents believed it would be difficult to prove that the CIA was behind it if they bought Kalashnikovs instead of M16s.
The U.S. could have some sort of plausible deniability, because they were Soviet weapons.
That decision to flood Afghanistan with AK-47s came back to haunt the United States in a completely unexpected way.
It's what they call irony.
When the United States invaded Afghanistan after 9/11, the first American soldier killed there was shot by a 14-year-old with a Kalashnikov automatic rifle, likely sent there by the CIA back in the 80s. That one incident illustrates two of the many ways the AK-47 has changed the world of war. The first might be called the Pandora's box effect. When the Soviet Union was still an empire, it granted production licenses to many of its Eastern European allies. The AK was manufactured in Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and in China. And it still is. Now Russia wants to put the AK-47 back in their box, take back their right to make and sell the gun exclusively. That's a major theme of these 60th anniversary celebrations. At the conference, Kalashnikov himself led the charge, calling the foreign manufactured rifles counterfeits and claiming that they're inferior.
At exhibitions, I often see my guns, pick them up and, oh God, the seals are not ours, but Chinese, Bulgarian, Hungarian. They all look similar, but they fail to meet the high needs of the military men.
The government-run company that controls the production has sponsored a video in which a reporter goes to gun shows around the world. They even went to the United States, to Las Vegas, Nevada, to track down versions of the weapon put together in that state from Bulgarian and Romanian components. When the United States decided to arm the Mujahideen in Afghanistan in the 80s, it didn't buy the guns from the Soviet Union. And it definitely didn't ship guns that said made in Las Vegas. Most of them came from China.
China is the largest maker of AK in the world. In fact, when you talk about the CIA buying AKs and giving them to Mujahideen, they were sold by the ton.
Today, the Russians wish the Chinese didn't turn out AKs by the ton. Instead, they have a new best friend who's going to make their AKs in the Americas, Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. And he's already bought a lot of them.
When Hugo Chavez announced in 2006 he was going to buy about 100,000 AKs from Soviet stockpiles, at first the State Department didn't really have a reaction because they didn't quite get it. There are not 100,000 people in the Venezuelan army.
Now, some experts worry that he might spread them around South America, fomenting unrest, selling them to rebel groups like the FARC in Colombia, adding to their stockpile. So how do millions of AK-47s get into the hands of fighters all over the world? We asked a man here in Moscow that the U.S. government says knows a lot about that. His name is Richard Shelshockly. You're alleged to be associated with Victor Bout, who's the most notorious gunrunner in the world. Victor Bout, a Russian citizen, has worked the arms market from all sides, from the Cold War through the Iraq War.
Victor Bout, the way I know him, is a businessman. He was a very shrewd businessman. He knew aviation. He knew how to use assets.
When we come back, we'll hear more from Richard Shelshockly, an international man of mystery, an accountant and commercial manager who worked with Victor Bout in the Middle East and in Texas.